How likely are you to pick an extreme winner in the stock market? And by that I mean a stock that goes up by more than 500%. And how likely are you to hit a catastrophic failure, meaning investing in a company that loses more than 70% and then never recovers? Well, JP Morgan did some research on this area in the report The Agony and the Ecstasy. You guys seem to like it when I cover the rise of the economy. I see it continues to get traffic, so I guess that research reports is actually something that people look into. So let's go over the EMEA edition using UK examples in this case and look at the statistics of everything in between, because I think this is important to get a grounded view on what's actually realistic in terms of stock market performance and not just fall for the TikTok finance trap and crypto style returns. Alright, so how likely are you to invest in a losing company in this case? And the root of this risk is, of course, business failure. Most businesses actually fail, and there are tons of examples of this in this report. If we look at startup, the amount is absolutely insane, but also more mature companies. All businesses will eventually fail. It's just a matter of time. That's the nature of capitalism. It's creative destruction. Companies rise and fall all the time. And now in the AI era, we're going to see a lot more of that. All right, let's skip the history of the UK stock market and let's look at some of these mega winners. We can see that they are just 10% of the stocks in the index over time. So 10% that outperform the index here by over 500%. So those are the Palantirs, those are the Porch Groups, and a lot more UK examples in this case. So first of all, what sectors do we see catastrophic losses and mega winners in? Well, in information technology, we can see percentage of stocks here with catastrophic loss, 68%. Stocks that had negative absolute return, so 52% of stocks had a negative return over this lifespan here from 1986 to 2025. So most stocks will have lost you money. And then stocks negative excess return versus index. Very few actually beat index. That's the beauty of the index. They buy the whole market. And when you get the whole market, well, you are a lot more likely to get these mega winners, because it is the mega winners that drive up total returns. And we can see this now extremely clear with the Magnificent Seven absolutely carrying the US stock index higher, and we see a lot of other sectors struggling. So here in IT, 8% were mega winners. I think that this will change a bit going into the future when we have more mature IT companies. I think that perhaps this number will go up. But it's a lagging index looking backwards in this case. We see energy, 51% catastrophic loss. Consumer discretionary, 49%. Healthcare, 46%. Is there anyone with a lower amount? Yes, utilities. So if you want to preserve wealth, have a bit of a safer bet, well then utility companies seems to be the way based on historical data, although less volatility, no risk, no reward. We also see that they have quite the low percentage of mega winners, only 8% in this case. Although imagine you were such a good stock picker that you picked a utility company with very low risk that became a mega winner in this case. In terms of market cap, this also matters a lot. in terms of the small ones, which are the ones that I primarily look at on this channel. Of course, I look at other companies as well when suggestions arrive in the comment section. However, we can see that the highest amount of catastrophic loss is in the small cap sector with 44%. Oof, yeah, total stocks catastrophic loss 83%. Absolutely much larger risk in the small cap sector. And then once companies become large and established, they have a proven track record of success, this amount of catastrophic loss is way reduced. We can also see a normal bar type diagram here with the numbers of stocks, the median, so distribution of excess lifetime returns on individual stocks versus the index in this case. So we can see that a lot of them go somewhere between -10 and 0% versus the index. Most people don't beat the index. And then we can see that the distribution is a little less here, on just slightly beating the index. And we can see that the right side with greater returns is a bit smaller than the left side with worse returns. And some seriously catastrophic losses here on. Yeah, this is not looking good if you want to be a stock picker. It's not a game out there. You have to really dig down, do the research, understand, and stock picking is not an easy thing if you look at purely statistics. So let's take a look at here some case studies in industries and how businesses fail. I think that we have some graphs here. So some catastrophic losses. Debenham, so digital stumbles, too many stores and ballooning debt, crippling a high street staple. And COVID finally slammed the door here, so this company went bankrupt. Perhaps some of you recognize this company from before. I never heard about Debenhams, but high debt is usually a recipe for disaster. I've learned this the hard way. Yet, despite that, sometimes I still get tempted by companies with high debt because it's leverage. And yeah, this swings both ways, increases risk a lot, and in this case leading to a catastrophic loss. Laura Ashley, also a heritage brand that flatlined from aging aesthetics, store-heavy model, and slow digital progress. Later, lockdowns sealed its fate. Another company I never heard of, ASOS as well, e-commerce trailblazer squeezed by warehouse bottlenecks, rising online and discount-driven rivals, heavy capex, and post-COVID supply chain shocks. Heavy capex can be detrimental in the short term. In the long term, it can be very beneficial if you're able to use the equipment down into the ground, so to say. But if you're a struggling business and you're heavy in capex, then this is not a good sign. Zalando, Swedish company that I've heard of, they have not had a good time since their peak. Let's look at some comebacks instead here. Mark and Spencer made a serious comeback in this case. Adidas as well. And LVMH as well. The luxury titan here we can see in the mega winners category. So this is where you would have had that excess return 500% more than index. So barely recognized any of the catastrophic losses, but immediately here on the mega winners we see a brand that most people recognize. Richemont, I never heard about this brand, but I guess a lot of people have. Hermes, luxury brand. Inditex, never heard about this one either, but you see some of these brands are more well known. And we can see that these catastrophic losses, well, lesser known. Banking, as well. Some losses here. Northern Rock, Lloyds Bank, Bankia, Commerce Bank. I would say that Citi has also seen some catastrophic loss here and not been able to recover yet. But that's not the European. We have Societe Generale here, the French one. Some bad times in the banking sector with the rise of nimble competition from smaller digital first companies. And then we can see a mega winner in HSBC, interestingly enough. Who could possibly have predicted this? Hong Kong Shanghai Bank of Commerce, when we saw, for example, the Brits exit Hong Kong, return it to China. Who would have thought that this bank would continue to be successful? Well, it seems that they have done fantastically since then in facilitating commerce, hedging currencies. They've been doing a great job. I did not see that one coming. And then we also have here in another category, we can see that some catastrophic losses here. ThyssenKrupp, German steel, big rivalry from China, producing a lot of cheap steel. Many European steel makers struggled. What we see left today is special steel. Neste, EDF, Ørsted, Danish Wind. Also a huge competition in this sector from India and from China. Some comebacks. And then we see mega winners here with Rhine Metal. Of course, they're having a fantastic time right now with the war economy. BAE Systems, Airbus, doing great. Safran as well. There's not a whole lot of examples, but we're seeing some examples in every single industry. Another industry here, we see Nokia. They made some amazing phones back in the day, but were unable to adapt and stumbled here when Apple entered the scene. BT Group, Telefonica, Orange, the French telecom one. Wow, a utilities one that had a bad time. You don't see that very often. Remember, very rare, but it happens. And you're seeing the examples right here in this video here from Bulnova. We see Atos, TomTom, the navigation one. I remember this back in the day. They seemed stable, you know. Everybody used these in the cars. And then with the smartphone, no one needed them anymore. Of course, some older people still used maps, and then TomToms came in on the scene, but I would not have been able to see this one losing this much ground. I remember back in the day, these were amazing, and you got them in the car, you added them on in the dealership. Did not think this was gonna go anywhere. Crazy to see that as a big loss here. A catastrophic loss. Let's skip the comeback and look at the mega winners. ASML, chip making, doing great right now. SAP, fantastic. They have some databases. They have a amazing offering. Friend of mine works there now. A big winner, a mega winner. Who would have thought that databases would be so important 10 years ago? The data would basically be the new oil. I caught onto this back in 2018. When I saw all the data silos at companies, I decided to invest in Palantir when that one came into the market. But yeah, IT, a little bit easier for me since it's my home arena. We see some more catastrophic losses here. BioNTech, so biotech leader that faded. This happens from time to time. No more patents that are renewed and cheap generic drugs. They just take out all the profit once the patents expire, and no new drug is made that will make a ton of money for the company. Bayer, who would have known? They produce a lot of drugs. For example, testosterone in Thai pharmacies come from that. Some mega winners, AstraZeneca, Novartis. And yeah, that was some of the examples. But this really goes to show that we need to adapt our strategies for managing wealth. It's one of the ways to make a ton of money, one of the ways that I know from a small amount of concentrated positions. People do this if they work at a company that becomes very successful, they have vested shares in it, they've made some successful investments. It's a common way to get rich. We saw Bill Gates with Microsoft. Eventually he diversified away a bit from the stock on advice of his friend Warren Buffett in this case. But this is a common way, and once you get to that goal, this is something I will look at very, very soon once I've done some tax planning. But I reached that goal, I reached that number that I need. I have enough money to be able to live for the rest of my life with the expenses that I want. And I know that I need to diversify away a bit because my wealth is way too concentrated. And these are some of the examples. We've seen companies doing amazing in the past, and you never know what will happen in the future, if some new company will come and disrupt, or some idiosyncratic risk might emerge. You know, something crazy happens. The CEO of Palantir or Porch Group tweets something crazy. New regulatory risk happens, you know, a new law gets implemented that just decimates the business, or some insider goes rogue and just absolutely tanks the business. We've seen this in some cases with the oldest bank in Britain. I think it was Lloyds that got tanked by a rogue trader that collapsed the oldest bank in British history. No, it was not Lloyd, it was some other name. Let me know if you know the exact one in the comments down below, because it eludes me right now. But this is a real risk. This idiosyncratic risk, this risk of catastrophic losses will always be there. And the way to get around this is to diversify. Now, hopefully you enjoyed me showing you some examples of mega winners, of catastrophic losses, and we could see that the statistics was a bit skewed towards losers in this case for the stock market, especially versus the index fund. Index funds are a fantastic way, in my opinion, to both build and preserve wealth. However, if you want to get rich quicker, then single stock picking is the way to go, although it carries a lot more risk, as we clearly saw in the examples. Now, that's been it for this video, and as always, hope you guys make a ton of money, whatever investments you decide to make. Take care now, bye bye.